Coming up on Digital Music Trends, episode 160, recorded on the 4th of December 2013, Beats Music launching in January 2014, YouTube Music pushed to Q1 2014, music messaging, BT's upcoming music service, Spotify's artist initiative, HMV, and lots more. Hello everyone and welcome to Digital Music Trends. I'm Andrea Linelli and this is a weekly show where we talk about and try to make sense of the latest news in the digital music industry, and DMT is available as an audio and a video podcast on a variety of channels including iTunes, most podcatchers, YouTube, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn Radio and Audio Boo. To get in touch with the show you can tweet us on @DigiMusicTrends or email us on contact@digitalmusictrends.com. And on our first December show, as everyone's counting the days towards the Christmas break, I'm really happy to welcome a fantastic panel. So first up, Neil Cartwright, MD at Million Media and the Global Sales and Strategy Manager at Valley Arm Digital, which is a digital music distributor in the Asia Pacific region. So hi Neil, and great to have you on. How's it going?
Going very well, thank you, Andrea. Great to be on. Thank you.
It's great to have you here actually in the video as well, because last time I think we had some glitches with the video side, but it's great to.
I was in Manila last time. Yeah, exactly. It's slightly easier this time.
Slightly easier, definitely. And then we have Sid Lawrence, a tinkerer and a developer at We Make Awesome Shit, which you can find at wemakeawesome.it. So hey Sid, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
And it's a week before the, it's the precursor to the Music Hack Day, so we're going to talk about that later as well.
It's Music Hack Day this weekend. Yeah,
very exciting. And finally, Ryan Rauscher, who's project manager at Mix Labs, which is the competence center for the digital music business at the Pop Academy in Mannheim. So hey, Ryan, and great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show again.
It's great. It's great to have you. How's things in Mannheim? All good?
Yeah, very good. We're running some courses on digital music topics right now and doing an interesting with students about music analytics. So all as usual here, but
that's great. Awesome. And so we opened the show with the news that actually just came out literally an hour ago in a short post on his personal blog, which is kind of an odd place to announce it, but I guess anywhere is good on the internet these days as long as you have a decent server to withstand the traffic. Ian Rogers, who's the CEO of Beats Music, of course ex-CEO of Topspin, announced that the service will launch in the US in January 2014. Of course, there was a lot of speculation around the launch date because they had announced in January that it would launch by the end of this year, but of course with no news it seemed pretty obvious that they were going to have to delay it to early next year. There was no mention of the word Daisy, which was a code word under which the service had been supposedly being built, and so I guess they went with the brand name, which makes a lot of sense because Beats Music is such a strong brand name around the world, and so it makes sense to launch a service with that name instead of giving it a weird flower name that didn't make any sense to anybody else. And so the service also offers the opportunity of people for US users to register their username in order to reserve it. Of course, the service is only going to launch in the US in January, which is the nature of these deals, especially on the licensing front when new services come out. And amongst the facts that Rogers listed, he points out that the service is in internal private beta and only a few artists and influencers are having access to it in order to get early feedback. So we don't know much more about the service. We know a launch date and we know that it's happening. So just a quick round. Sid, what are your thoughts on Beats Music so far? We don't know anything, but at least it's happening. So that's something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, so I'm a big fan of Ian Rogers, so I would like Beats to do well, but then at the same time, do we really need yet another one? I mean, even just from podcast stance, I mean, you at the beginning of the show went through the list of 20 different podcast sites where you can find this. Do we need more?
Yeah.
But I also found it interesting with Topspin announcing their deal with Spotify as well, right?
Yeah.
So Ian, who used to be at Topspin, and I'm sure is still very much involved, I don't know if that deal, how long that deal is, or we don't even know the intricacies of the deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it could just be a case of Spotify have approached Topspin and said, "Can we do this?"
Yeah. Which would be silly to refuse because
absolutely,
of course. So yeah, no, it's an interesting story, and I think I guess Beats. You asked do we need another one? I guess Beats is the only service that launches with such a strong, like the first time that a service launches with such a strong brand behind it. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that drives any mainstream adoption and whether there's going to be any bundles with headphones. That could be a winner if they bundle the service with a headphone package. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Beats?
Yeah, well, I think that's especially interesting to see what it means for a streaming service to be a hardware or headphone manufacturer, and what it means for getting for reach, for reaching new customers, because I think that is one of the obviously one of the most important challenges for streaming services right now, to expand, to get a lot of users. So it'll be interesting to see what Beats as a brand for headphones can do to that respect.
Absolutely. Neil, with your international expertise as well, do you feel like Beats is a service that could come out of the gates and start branching out internationally without the same hurdles that other services are facing in terms of having to find an audience and tell them who they are and what they're all about?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a very exciting launch. The Beats name is a global brand. It's backed by some big players in the industry. I think Jimmy Iovine, Dr. Dre are all there behind the scenes, and they've got the backing of the likes of Universal, so they've got a lot in their favour. I recall that there was a lot written at the time about Topspin trying to integrate with more services, and I think the Spotify announcement is an example, but with Ian's background at Topspin, I think they will go for the far deeper integration between the streaming service and the artist. And it's always been a criticism that the artist doesn't know who is playing their music. It's very hard to access the fans who are listening to your tracks. Yeah. And this has been true of iTunes, Amazon, Spotify. The fans are anonymous to the artist. I suspect that what Beats are going to try and do, and they said this a few months ago, was they were going to try and bridge that gap. Yeah. So that there's going to be data protection, obviously, but if you're a fan listening to an artist, I suspect that you'll be able to opt in to receive more marketing messages, or, as we've seen with the Topspin integration with Spotify, that ability to buy merchandise and tickets supplied by the artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's a very exciting announcement. Unlike Audio, perhaps, who had to go from a standing start and build their brand, Beats have got that brand. They can bring in some of the biggest names in music to endorse. They've already said, haven't they? They've got the talent playing around with the service, and no doubt that's going to include some massive names that Jimmy can probably call up and say, check this out, get a few quotes from an Eminem or whoever his mates are, and that will launch the service around the world, because these artists are big around the world. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very, very exciting service. I hope it doesn't let us down. That's one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing that we talked about extensively on the show over the past year, is the expectation that the service set. And Sid, from a developer's perspective, I wanted to ask you, Ian remarked on his blog post on how he felt like he didn't have any pressure from Beats to get the service out by his deadline, and that gave him the time to polish it up, make sure that it was working the way they wanted it to, instead of coming out of the gates with sort of a half-baked product. Do you think that the failure of Twitter Music may have also played a hand in making people a little bit more cautious in releasing a product that they're absolutely certain about, instead of trying to hype up something that in the end doesn't quite work out with the consumers?
Well, yes, but at the same time, it all depends on what and how you hype. I mean, you shouldn't. Right. I mean, you should always be careful about hyping anything, even if you've spent months and months on it, right? Even if it's something that is perfect, you've got to make sure that it lives up to the hype. So yeah, I mean, I think you always get a much better polished product if you can spend the time tweaking it. I mean, but then at the same time, nothing's ever finished and nothing's ever perfect. Yeah. So there's got to be a point when they're going to have to launch it before it's perfect, right? Exactly. And they're going to have to launch it before it's finished, even, because if it's finished, what are they going to be doing in 2 years' time? Yeah. I mean, Facebook isn't finished. Spotify itself isn't finished.
Nothing
right?
is finished on the internet.
Exactly. So there always has to be some time of deadline.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see when it is. I mean, I really hope that it does have a huge integration with Topspin, because I think we all kind of agree that we would quite like artists to make more money.
Yeah.
The actual art people who are creating the work. So I hope that it will be a success. It will be interesting to see when it does come out. I am sick and tired of the others, I have to admit. I am only giving them money not because I like them, but because I want access to the music, and yet I still also buy music. I don't know, it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting.
Yeah, certainly. And looking at the announcement, I still call it Daisy because we've been calling it Daisy for the last year or so, of Beats Music. That was it kind of came in as the first story all of a sudden, but the first story I was going to open with was actually talking about YouTube and the new YouTube streaming music service that's supposedly going to happen in Q1 of 2014. This is an interesting story just because there is nothing that's come out of YouTube. The one thing that came out last week was the fact that the Android police discovered bits of code within the Android app of YouTube that sort of demonstrated or proved that this service is being worked on and is happening, and there were lines of code that were very clear about pointing to the new YouTube service. Whether those were planted or not, we're never going to know. So everybody thought last week that the service was going to launch very soon. But then again, Peter Kafka from All Things D posted a piece yesterday saying that even the YouTube service is not quite done yet, and it will also see a launch in Q1 of 2014. So it's kind of like two giants now here, Beats Music and YouTube, which is an even bigger behemoth of the music industry now. Going head-to-head in Q1 of 2014, and also, of course, the existing music services that are already out there and have an audience having to fight back hard in order to keep the customers that they've already acquired. So it's going to be a battle next year, right? Ryan, for the German perspective as well, how do you feel that consumers will react? Are they ready to jump ship from one service to the other, or do you think that people that have adopted Spotify are going to stick with it, or people that have adopted Deezer are going to stick with it?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but I did a course last week and asked my students who was using Spotify, and it was like in our class 90%, and only one person tried out another streaming service. So that's the way it looked like. And asked them, I talked about challenges of finding a USP as a service, and we talked a bit how difficult it is, to get people to switch. So I think it's a really big challenge. In terms of YouTube, it's interesting. We have the streaming service here from TV channels.
Sorry, called? I lost you for a second there.
There's a streaming service called Empire here in Germany, from the TV channels ProSiebenSat.1. They have a video platform called My Videos, which is going to be their sort of USP here in Germany, and besides the media ad power they have. So I think in terms of YouTube going into the music video streaming market, that's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, and what Empire can do with their video and compared to YouTube.
Absolutely. And Neil, YouTube has already got a catalog of potentially, the largest catalog of music coming from the international market as well, whilst other services are really struggling in acquiring that catalog, even if they are present in those markets. Do you feel like YouTube can leverage that international reach to create the best international catalog yet?
Absolutely, no, 100%. YouTube is not only the biggest music streaming service by a long, long way in the US and Europe, but also Southeast Asia. It delivers millions of hits for the labels. It generates increasing amounts of revenue for those labels, just the same way as it does over here. They've already got the content. I can see it becoming probably the one global service. It will probably leapfrog over all Beats, Deezer, Spotify, who of course have to get the licenses in every country. And they've got the muscle of of an immensely profitable company right now, who are not only #1 in music, but across a number of different platforms, whether it be sport and TV and cooking and everything you can think of. So they're laying the foundations for a whole pay-per-view platform, subscription TV.
Yeah.
So again, very exciting. How I still don't understand how it is going to work with Google Access All Areas and Google Play, because of course they launched that service this year. YouTube are going to be launching next year. Those two services are going to have to integrate somehow.
Yeah,
because otherwise the same company has got two competing services.
Yeah, I mean, what I was wondering, I was writing something the other day. The one thing that I thought about was demographics. So I was thinking whether, because the demographic of Spotify, especially on people that are paying, is sort of over 24-year-olds, and that's not the demographic of the core audience of YouTube right now. There's a lot of teens on there. So whether YouTube has got any plans to keep that path sort of separate, so that Google Play Musical Access becomes the destination for 20 plus, and then YouTube becomes the platform of adoption of teenagers that grew up with the service and might become willing to pay for it in a year or two's time once they start getting some disposable income.
I'm skeptical. I think it'll take a lot to convince teenagers to pay for anything.
Yeah. Sid, what are your thoughts? You worked a lot on YouTube stuff as well for your hacks.
I mean, I kind of totally agree. So my girlfriend's a teacher, and she asked the class. It was a few weeks ago. They were talking about morals, and then they got onto piracy, and then it got onto where they currently listen to music.
Right.
And there is very much the kids, Sid.
So the kids are about 14, 15.
Right.
So it's secondary school. I don't know what year exactly, but around that it would have been. And there were very much three types of people who answered the questions. And there were the musos who still buy music now and go to a lot of gigs and know that artists make their money from gigs. Then there are the people who are tech nerds who have always pirated, who will continue to pirate. And then there's those in between that just listen on YouTube, don't actually think about who's making any money from that, and also don't go to gigs. But at the same time, they said that they would quite like to somehow give their money to the artists, but they were more than happy with YouTube. So it's a really interesting one. I was quite surprised how they were wanting to give more money than I would have expected, and I don't think they just would have said that answer. They're very much aware that they're not giving any money to any of their favourite artists right now.
Yeah.
And it was just an interesting one. I thought there was more positive responses from being willing to pay for a subscription YouTube than I expected. But it all depends what the difference between the free version is.
Exactly, and the price point as well, because we don't know. YouTube could easily decide to undercut everybody else and price it at $6.99 or whatever, and that could be.
And as we all know, they don't have a huge disposable income, so
no, exactly. It's tough times now for Google. So,
what I reckon they might even do. Well, you mentioned earlier, Neil, about two competing services. Well, Google are actually quite good at doing that. Right now, they've got Chrome OS and Android, which are two totally different operating systems. And even just from a browser, they had Google Chrome and the Android browser, which were running parallel. So, yeah, they do seem to be quite good at doing that. So I wouldn't put it past them at all. I'm not sure if they would do it successfully, but they're just good at ending up doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Possibly one of the reasons that everyone will want to pay a subscription as well is to get rid of the adverts, which are becoming more and more intrusive and infuriating.
Yeah.
The number of times you want to watch a video and have to sit through one of these 30-second adverts that's of no interest. Is that worth £5-6 a month to get rid of all the adverts? Absolutely.
I was just thinking,
I would
a week.
I would pay that and keep my Spotify subscription. I would just pay it to get rid of the adverts.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think is an interesting dilemma for YouTube right now is what's going to happen to the content, because they have a deal with the, I mean, apparently they have deals already in place with all the majors, from what I've read. But the majority of Sony's and Universal Music frontline content that is on YouTube comes via Vivo. And Vivo doesn't have the licenses to provide that kind of stuff, so they would have had to go directly to the labels to get the same tracks from, you know, Universal. But if the videos are not on YouTube in the first place, because they're not YouTube's, they are Vivo's videos, what's going to happen in that case? That's like a really interesting thing, because, you know, of course, the biggest videos in the world right now are those videos that are coming from Vivo on the music front. And so if YouTube doesn't have them because they're not theirs, then how does the consumer get hold of them? It's a bit of a question mark on that front.
All will be revealed, I'm sure.
Yeah, all will be revealed, exactly. And Ryan, I want to tap into your also your sort of younger person's contacts, given that you have so many students and stuff. Talking about messaging, so there's a you know, it's a hot topic right now. Tech companies are getting bought left, right, and center that have to do with messaging and facilitate that. They're getting offers like crazy, and you know, there's big bucks left, you know, on the table for people that can do that kind of stuff right. Now there's a company called PingTune that has raised £1 million here in London. Actually, I don't know the guys yet. I'm sure I'll get in touch with them soon to develop a messaging app that is based around music. So PingTune is currently available for iOS, and after you sign up, you verify your mobile number, and away you go. You can search for tracks that are searched through YouTube and SoundCloud. Then you select the track. If you can compose a short text, it sends the text via normal phone signal with a link, and people can open it. Of course, most people have smartphones these days, and consume that content. So it's an interesting idea, of course. I'm just wondering, you know, we're reading about other companies that are doing messaging that are starting to integrate music options within their services, whether that's more of a feature rather than an actual service in itself. Ryan, do you think that there's space here for a company to come in and own the space of messaging around music, or is it just messaging and whatever content it is, there just has to be one service that takes it all in?
Well, I am a bit skeptical. I did try out PingTune, and it's really beautiful, beautifully made. It's straightforward. It's really fun to use and things. And of course, mobile messaging is really big in Germany too. I think it's the same picture as in the UK or in the US, except that I think WeChat is more popular here in Germany than it is in UK, for example. So it is a very interesting field. But that was one of my first thoughts, is do people want that as a standalone app? Because I think it was Tango or a different, that's the name, yeah, in the US, a mobile messaging service. They are wanting to, or did go into the music space. So that could be
WhatsApp as well. I think they have some sort of music feature.
Yeah,
now.
So that could be a big competitor. You know, you use your messaging service, and it's just like you know, press a button and then share music, or instead of a photo. And also maybe streaming services that have like a WhatsApp a share button, you know, that have social sharing embedded into them. So I'm skeptical about that. We'll have to see how how PingTune develops in the UK.
Yeah.
I looked in the numbers as well, so it looks good. They're going up on the charts in the UK, and in Germany they're not really popular yet.
Of course.
So we'll have to see, but I don't really think it will be a standalone device,
right,
other than a feature on a different service.
Yeah, I said again, we come up again. Every year we come up to the question, is this a feature or is this a service? What are your thoughts?
So I've only heard of them briefly beforehand, because one of them sent us an email not too long ago. I feel really bad because we haven't replied to them yet. At the same time, I also didn't realise that they had just raised how much money?
£1 million. Yeah.
1.
Okay.
It's £1 million. It's £1 million. It's $1.6 million. Yeah.
Is that valuation or actually raised?
That's raised. As reported, it's raised. It was reported by TechCrunch. Yeah.
Well, so if I was to add a service onto Tomo.hk where you could send yourself a text message via Twilio or a friend a text with a link back to it which already plays it from SoundCloud or YouTube, then would that mean that I would be able to be given $1.6 million? Yeah.
You will when you have an app.
I'm so amazed.
I'm still waiting for the Tomahawk app.
There's a website. It works on mobile.
It's true.
I mean, I'm not sure why. I've spent a few days on it to make it. If I want to make it into an app, it will take me a few weeks. And
Exactly, yeah.
I don't see how anyone can make... so someone has given them $1.6 million. Now, from my experience, venture capitalists don't like allowing you to sell the company until they've made 10 times what they invest. So they're hoping that their $1.6 million is going to be $16 million. Now, yeah. I imagine for that they would have maybe a 20% share of the company. I don't know. Obviously, I'm very much guessing. So that would then mean that the company would have to be sold for $100 million before the venture capitalists will allow it or make $100 million. Now, from a service that, it's just a feature in whether it is a messaging app or whether it's a music app, it's kind of, it's Instagram for dogs, right? I mean, it's kind of... I'm amazed if they ever make any money from that. And I mean, both the investors and the company.
And I'm absolutely open. You know, I really want to have a chat with them and see if there's probably more on the roadmap than what the app gives away. I'm hoping at least. So it's going to be interesting to see what that brings. But Neil, do you feel like Sid, in the sense that it's a difficult space to crack, and maybe perhaps they're going to get acquired by another messaging service that doesn't have music embedded and needs that part of it?
As a standalone app, I'm more than just cynical. I would just say it's not going to work. And the reason is because the same reason that a lot of social networking based around any one particular niche is very difficult to launch. And the reason is that if the power of these apps is to have all your friends using it. If all your friends don't use it, then you have to have a load of different apps and remember which friend uses which app.
Right.
If you take a random sample of people from the population, let's take 10 people, 2 of them statistically will be passionate about music, 2 will be enthusiastic, 3 will be casual, 3 will be indifferent, as in more people are indifferent and casual about music and love it. So you'll have the 2 passionate music fans talking to themselves, none of their friends will be using the app. It's the power of the network is not going to work. Whether they can develop it though and then sell it, as you say, to a messaging app that are looking to integrate music is absolutely what I would be investing in. Yeah. But I don't think it's ever going to take off as an app to rival Viber or WhatsApp.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, the one thing that I was, when I used it, was positive is the fact that you weren't locked into only messaging people that were also joining the app, because that's one of the main problems that now some of these recommendation discovery services have, is that you have to get such a critical mass of users onto the app that in the end nobody ends up using it, because you only have one other friend that uses it. You know, I might have 10 on some of these apps because we're all music tech people, and so we're all on this trying all the different apps that are happening. But that's the only reason, essentially. None of my normal friends from Facebook are using any of the services, so it's always difficult to gauge what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, and I've never felt a need to send a clip of a music track to anyone.
Right. Yeah.
I'll forward a link to the whole track or a link to the playlist. But to take a clip of a track, doesn't really fulfill a need.
Exactly. Oh, well, it's an interesting one. We're going to keep an eye on them.
What I think needs to happen is the WhatsApps and the Snapchats and the WeChats need to offer an API. Right. If they allow people to create things that can send links, which, I mean, I'm sure you can. If I opened up WhatsApp, I could send a link to a friend. If they had an API, I could literally create it so that you could send a Tomo.hk link via a WhatsApp message with one click of a button somewhere. And then that lets the user choose. I mean, for those that don't know what Tomahawk HK or Tomahawk are, it's one music platform that plays music from all of the other platforms. So it's just a player. I mean, it's not a platform, it's just a music player that plays from Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, etc. All the legitimate ones. So, yeah, I mean...
If that existed, it'd be easy.
It would be easy. And they're all discussing it. There are unofficial ways to do Snapchat stuff. We've been playing around internally. Haven't yet launched any projects with it, but it is possible. WeChat and WhatsApp I'm not aware of.
Right. Cool. Well, I think we can close on that subject. And there's actually a really great piece posted by Darren Hemmings, who posted a piece called what was it called? Sorry, 1 second. Music versus the web, have we reached a social media's tipping point? I'll put the link in the show notes, so it's definitely worth a read. He's not on the show today, but it's definitely worth mentioning, where he talks about Facebook declining as an indicator of something spreading, whether it's a music release in his case, in his campaigns, and YouTube and Shazam being much better indicators of whether something is catching fire online or not. So that's definitely an interesting piece to read. Talking about a service that in Britain I would have never ever put any money on them launching a music service is BT. So I thought we'd seen I thought we'd seen the end of build telcos trying to build music services, but apparently that's not the case, and the disasters of Sky and Virgin Media Music have not proven the point yet. And I guess maybe the O2 Tracks is a success. So if you don't know what O2 Tracks is, O2 Tracks is a UK initiative by the company O2, which is a mobile provider where you can get the top 40 of the UK cached on your phone for £1 a week, and that's proven really successful. Maybe that success has spurred BT to try and go this way, but The Guardian and the Financial Times reported that the company is about to launch a music service by the end of the year, apparently. They signed the deal with Universal Music for 150 albums, which will be available via the company's TV box, which they provide to some of the customers who opt into the TV option. And BT wants to increase the number of albums available to 1,000, but I guess given the number that it's going to be mostly pop, high-profile releases, and the company will charge a £3 monthly fee, which will be added to the bill that they already send. So it's quite a painless way of integrating that service into the everyday experience of the users without it feeling particularly expensive. Apparently there's going to be a lyrics option where you can view the lyrics on it as well. But overall, it just seems like a very strange thing, just because. Okay, I understand that they don't want to give that part of the business away to companies that are already existing, like Spotify and stuff. But at the same time, it is very difficult these days to launch a music service that is only geared at a very small subsection of the population that has the BT box in the first place. So I don't know. Whoever, Sid, you're incensed by this. Do you feel like it makes sense?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I will always wish everybody the best of luck.
Yeah, that's true.
With any idea that they might have.
Any idea?
Oh, sure. I think if you have something that you want to do well, then we should hope that it does well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I personally, I don't know. I don't have one of the BT boxes, so I'm not a target audience. So it's an interesting move for me. I mean, it's quite cheap, and if it is those top 1,000 albums for a mum to subscribe to, or whoever it might be, then if it fulfills a gap for them, then perfect.
Yeah, it's just weird. I think it's weird because of the company. It's weird because of the consumption device as well. I don't think there's many people that are listening to music via their television yet as well. So
this is something that I also will have totally agreed with you. However,
okay.
Not too long ago, we got a smart TV that's got Spotify on it. And although we've got Apple TV so that we can AirPlay to the TV if we want to, because that's also the best speaker system. But I've been using Spotify on the TV via the remote control as though it's relatively easy to do, which I am amazed and surprised by.
And you have a good system as well hooked up to it, I imagine.
Yeah. So our best sound system comes from our TV, comes from our TV.
Yeah.
And I've been using Spotify on the TV, which I never imagined I would do, and I never really saw why I would want to do it.
Yeah.
Especially, I've got a keyboard that I can type much more easily than I can use a keyboard on a screen with a remote control. But actually, I just use it for playing my starred tracks or playing some playlists.
Your playlists, yeah, exactly.
I don't try and search for things.
Sure.
But it's quicker and easier for me to turn that than to AirPlay, which was a surprise for me.
Yeah. Ryan, in Germany, do you have any big telcos that provide their own services still in terms of music streaming or music consumption?
No, we have partnerships right now. There's still some music services that have been around for some years, but right now it's more strategic partnerships with Spotify, of course, with Deutsche Telekom, or recently Vodafone. I think they announced that last week with Empire, the service I mentioned before. So they're giving young people up to 25 years, giving them up to 2 years of free access to that streaming service. So that's actually the way they're going now in Germany. So
that's interesting, actually. That news has not made it into the feeds internationally. I haven't seen that anywhere yet, so I'm glad you're pointing that out. And Neil, on your front, do you feel that, have you seen any of this stuff happening in Asia in your travels over the last couple of years?
Yeah, the biggest service in South Korea, Melon, is backed by SK Telecom. That is it's very similar. That for a low cost, which I think is it went up from $3 to $6 a month for unlimited streaming and unlimited downloads, and they hold about 80% of the South Korean market.
Great.
The challenge for the industry, as I said before, is if you divide the population up, you've got the very enthusiastic music fans who will probably gravitate towards Spotify and Beats, which leaves millions of people who don't want to pay for a premium subscription service, and it's how to get them, how to monetize them to some degree. So even £3 a month is more than zero, which is what a lot of them are currently paying.
Yeah.
So you offer them this relatively straightforward deal, £3 a month onto your bill. You've already got a BT line. And it starts to provide a service for all those millions of people who probably aren't going to pay £10 a month for Spotify or Beats, however good it is. It's a shame BT are doing it. I've never seen them succeed at anything like this. And I'm going back to the late 90s when I was dealing with them on all sorts of music services. They have never been able to launch anything, but they recently invested hundreds of millions into the football rights. They are acquiring rights to other sports. I think music is probably part of this bigger strategy that they've got, which is to become a content provider as well as a telecom.
Absolutely.
They were talking about in the wording, it says something about live concerts, and I don't know if that plays a role in there, because that might be something interesting depending on what they're planning there. But when you're talking about live sport events and stuff, I don't know, that's maybe watching live concerts on the TV. That might be something they could do well.
Yeah, it could be an interesting vertical. I mean,
I think that could definitely work.
Yeah. I mean, as always, it's difficult to gauge how it will work, just because if you take into account the production costs of having to put on a live streamed concert on something like on a proper high definition streaming services like what BT would probably offer, like how many people would that appeal to, and how much money would it take for them to break even? Are they willing to lose money on it? it'll be an interesting thing. You know, you're going to get so many people interested in sports, but there's only going to be a much more limited amount of people interested in a specific act at any given time. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to look out for. I think, but I feel like I'm hating on everything today. It's kind of like, why am I hating on everything? It's just I'm quite in a good mood as well. I don't know why. But I'm actually okay. Let's switch gears to something a bit more positive, because I'm actually really excited about all the stuff that came out of Spotify in the last couple of days. You know, really, you know, we've had a lot of silence from Spotify when it came to all the complaints made by musicians. They had a very similar response every time to the criticism that were thrown left, right, and center at them over the past sort of year, really, from artists. But I guess they were working on something that they wanted to launch as a way to demonstrate their value to the artist community, and that has come out this week, which is great. And they launched a new artist focused website, Spotify Artists, which brings a number of pages of information as to what they're paying, what they're doing, you know, what the real story is behind how the streaming business model works, and that's sort of the first part of this like three level act that they've done. The second thing is that they've opened up their analytics to artists, so artists can apply via the Next Big Sound to get their data, and they can look at the demographics of who's listening to the tracks and how many people are listening and where they are. And the third part is that partnership with Topspin that Sid mentioned earlier in the show, which will allow artists to showcase their merchandise on Spotify and sell it right from there, which is amazing, really. So it's the kind of stuff that we've all been talking about on the show for the last year, that Spotify should have been doing, and they were working on it, and it's finally come out. So, you know, Neil, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that I feel like this can personally turn the tide around on the sentiment around Spotify, and hopefully squash some of the negative press that happened over the last few months?
Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of Spotify. I always have been from the very first time we saw it. In fact, we were the second company ever to advertise on it. We've got invoice number 2 from Spotify.
That's amazing.
Yeah, claim. It really disappoints me to see negativity, but I think the negativity is if it's constructive and it leads to a better service, fair enough. I mentioned before about the Beats integration, and that won't have escaped Spotify. You know, they were talking about this 6-9 months ago. Spotify, very smart. They will have been putting all of this in place long before the Tom York and David Byrne comments. I'd imagine that this has been on their roadmap. And Sid mentioned it before. You know, these services cannot launch on day one with everything in place.
Yeah.
It takes 2, 3, 4 years getting your product right, adding the features, integrations, APIs, you name it. I suspect that this whole artist integration has been something they've been planning for quite a while. And the launch of Beats has probably just sped that process up a little bit. I don't think there's any reason why Spotify would want to shy away from artists, or to give artists more information, more ability to communicate with their fans. You know, and this is all just part of the evolution that's going on. For artists to criticize Spotify is ludicrous.
Yeah. Sid, this is a massive win for Next Big Sound. What do you think?
It is, yes. That's a huge win for Next Big Sound.
So, sorry, I should mention that, you know, in order to get those analytics that I talked about earlier, you have to go via Next Big Sound and sign up. So, sorry, go ahead. I just had to clarify that.
Huge win for Next Big Sound, and but it's kind of, yeah, I always thought that Spotify would just offer it themselves. So I'm also surprised that they haven't, which makes it an even bigger win for Next Big Sound, if that's what they're now pushing people towards.
It's a big win for artists as well, because if they go via Next Big Sound, it means that they can integrate other services stats in there instead of just being isolated from within a Spotify created ecosystem, right?
Yep.
So it's not bad. I mean, it doesn't mean any extra revenue for Next Big Sound right now, but it'll definitely lead to an increased visibility and probably more subscribers to the service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
which is, no, I agree.
It's pretty cool. I mean, you know, nothing bad to say about it. You know, you're gonna be able to get location data, so you can base your tours around where people are streaming tracks. It's just awesome. Ryan, how are your students feeling? Have you heard any comments yet from your base on these new features as to how people are taking them?
No, I didn't hear anything about the newest development. But I think it's very important. All three of those things: the education about the model and how it can turn out into more revenue in the future. And education is also, or the analytics feature is also a form of education. I think if you can see what numbers you can get from Spotify, what you can learn about your fans. So I didn't hear anything yet, but we're doing a project right now with a big label. We're working on music analytics. We're working with Next Big Sound, and one of the topics is Spotify integration. So I think that's really good. Also, the partnership with Topspin will be interesting in terms of music analytics and linking data about streaming usage to purchase data, more sources about your fan data. I think that can turn into a really good overview about what you can do with streaming data.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be like an awesome year for music, 2014, I think. With all these new services coming out, it's going to be the year where everything comes together, finally. Yay.
Well,
that's all. That was,
been saying that for a while.
Yeah. It's kind of like a split personality disorder today. I went from being total hate to like, everything's going to be wonderful next year, yay.
Ryan, I'm really sorry to move while you were talking, but
okay.
my laptop was about to die.
Okay, no, it's absolutely fine. Not a problem. We see more of the lasers, so that's very exciting.
Oh, stop the distractions.
I feel like a cat. I wanna start following the lasers on the ceiling. And so
lasers are amazing.
Lasers are good. And so I guess we should probably talk about the last story, and then we can talk a little bit about Music Hack Day for a minute. And so what am I going to choose? I'm going to choose HMV. I want to talk about physical retail and see what you guys have to say about that. So there's a bit more news coming out of HMV this week as the company confirms a change of course on what they've been doing for the past couple of years, where they were increasing the focus on gadgets like iPads and whatever, expensive gadgets, in order to increase the bottom line of the company, essentially, and reducing the space at the same time for music, films, and games. Now they're going to change course. They're going to stop all the nonsense with expensive, crazy gadgets, and they're going to increase the space given to music, films, and games, which seems to make sense because HMV, that's their bread and butter. That's what they sell. It's a very bold move, though, because of course, the films, music, and game are not making, games, of course, are a different story, but music is not making the same amount of revenues on physical like it used to. So, what do you feel is the effect of that? Were they wrong in the first place to try and focus on sales of gadgets, or was it just inevitable, like in a panic mode as they were sort of about to go bankrupt? Let's sell whatever consumers are willing to buy. Ryan, on your end, of course, you're not from the UK, so you can't comment from that perspective, but physical is doing very well in Germany. Are retailers also looking at gadgets as something to diversify their bottom line?
Well, I don't think there's an example like in that case in Germany. It's usually retailers they're selling other things like MediaMarkt, Saturn.
Right.
They're selling lots of other stuff, and music has only been a way to get people into the stores.
But music stores are still mostly selling music and games and DVDs and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
So I can't really, comment on that from here.
I guess the market is doing still pretty well on that front, so they haven't needed to go into that. Sid, what do you think about HMV integrating all those gadgets when it happened a couple of years back? It seemed natural to me at the time. I didn't have anything bad to say about it. It felt like they're gonna have to do it. But if they feel like they can't turn it around, then great.
How many HMV stores are left? Does anyone have any idea?
I think it's over.
A reduced number, 40 or 50, isn't it?
Is it? I thought it was still. Right.
It was 250, I think they shed most of them.
Which is, the one in Winchester is still there, but I haven't seen many others. But then I never realised, that's a lie. I always realised that they were selling gadgets when I walked in there, but I don't think I ever, if I ever wanted new headphones, for example, which I probably bought the most often out of any gadget or non-physical media related thing that HMV stocks, I would never really go into HMV to buy them.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure why, but yet whenever I'm in there, I always know that most of the building is taken up with these gadgets, whether they're iPads or iPhones or iPods or iDevices and other generic MP3 devices. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they've made the decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just reading on Wikipedia now. The number is 141 stores, from what I'm reading, that have been saved in the process. So there's still quite a few of them around. I think they closed all the ones in the airports, were very expensive, and a bunch of others. But there's still quite a lot of HMV stores around. So
I would like them to go back to being a record store.
Yeah.
Or like just recommendations, personal recommendations, and having people in the store who know what it is they're selling, or have a passion or interest in the media that they are selling.
Yeah.
They also, I swear, stopped selling computer games for a while and then went back to it because there aren't many places in Winchester to buy Xbox games, and I think that was one of the few places left. Yeah. But they ramped back on how much they were stocking for sure. So yeah, I would like them to go back to being more of a personal touch, I guess.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I'd love to see people that know about music more that work at HMV, but it kind of feels almost like wishing that there were more people that knew about technology that worked at Dixon's or Curry's now. But yeah, that's not the case. Usually it's kind of like, if you ask about anything that is not in the label, they won't know what you're talking about. So yeah, it'd be lovely to give more jobs to people that know about music. That'd be quite nice. And Neil, do you use HMV? Do you buy physical CDs? Have you noticed anything happening on that front?
No, I stopped buying physical CDs about 7 years ago. I mean, HMV are another company that I'd bracket alongside BT, I'm afraid. I'll take over your grumpiness from you. They're a company who, over the last 10 years, have consistently made the wrong decisions. Every time there was a decision to be made, they made the wrong one. And this is just stunning. I mean, why someone bought them, I don't know, because they were clearly losing money hand over fist with no real place. And the three industries that they've mentioned, music, DVDs and games, are all moving away from physical product. Let's not, I mean, a record shop would be nice, but a record shop on a high street with the rent and the rates and the overheads, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I suspect that the major studios, and I include music, games, and the film studios, are probably, are they subsidising it, bankrolling it? I don't know, but they've got the most to lose by HMV disappearing, and it wouldn't surprise me if credit terms or sale or return or whatever, they're bankrolling it in some way because they just want to maintain a distribution point on the high street. That is the only purpose HMV serve anymore.
Yeah, right.
How's that for grumpy?
It's pretty grumpy, and it's a good way to end the show. Like, I just want to touch upon the Hack Day with Sid. That's happening next week. I'm going to do some coverage there on Sunday. Yeah, this weekend. This weekend coming. I'm going to do some coverage on Sunday and see what's going on. Anything of note to mention, Sid? Any amazing?
I don't know. I haven't spoken to Martin massively about his plans for it.
So we don't know whether there's going to be any amazing APIs unveiled or anything like that. So
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's quite a big posse of us going along with some physical ideas. So whether it is weird and wonderful MIDI controllers made out of sensors, or whether it is creating music out of old cassette tapes and players.
Right.
There's kind of quite a wide Yeah, I think there's just going to, from the group that I know that are going, there's just going to be some weird and wacky stuff happening, which is actually going to be quite a lot of fun to be involved in, I think.
I'm quite
looking
excited about
forward
filming.
to being there. I've got no idea what's going to be made out of it. Rob, our designer, wrote up a blog post today about what he's hoping, what we're hoping to see at the Hack Day. And I have to admit, if there are any more social personal recommendation engines for which take one thing and give you another thing, then I'm going to be, well, yeah, a little bit bored, because I have to admit there's that seems to be kind of what everyone always thinks of. Yeah. We've got this amazing idea. Let's let people send a message to their friend with a track from YouTube or SoundCloud. That's an interesting idea. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Nice. Ryan, anything to plug your end that you want to mention?
Well, I think for me the most interesting thing now is really the project with music analytics, but I guess I said enough about that.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's awesome.
And another thing I would maybe talk to Sid. I would like to talk to you maybe about another project, because I'm doing things with university and with developers here, and so we're trying to build up, that kind of small music hack day vibe here between our Pop Academy music business students and developers. So I think I could learn a lot, how we could maybe implement that sort of working here, because that's the connection we would like to make more, to bring music business students and developers together. So we started our first project now with a universal buy-in streaming button, and try to do some things in that space with a browser plugin, and we're planning to do a lot more in that. So cool. With Mannheim, Andrea, that Mannheim in Germany is not so much with music hack days. Not so much going on, at least in Mannheim. We tried to have one at our Future Music Camp a few years ago, but it's hard to get the developers here. So we would like to try that in in our small space here, and maybe would be very interested in talking about those things.
Cool, sounds great, and I'm sure I'll put you in touch with Sid by email, and I'm sure you guys can chat more about it. And finally, Neil, anything your end? You want to plug the music, the Asian newsletter, or anything like that?
Music Weekly. I'm working on an online music magazine right now called musicweekly.asia, where we try to provide the exclusive top 30 Asia charts based on sales and downloads across the whole territory. There is no recognized chart system out there in many of those countries. So we through Valion are providing one. So that's a new venture that we're trying to launch, both the chart show, chart countdowns, coverage of the US, European, plus also the Southeast Asian artists, the K-pop stuff, which is incredibly successful in that territory and is starting to gain a little bit of traction. Psy, obviously, is the best example, but there's a lot of other artists who are coming up behind him. Psy is reputedly recording now with Justin Bieber and a guy called G-Dragon, because it's all Scooter Braun, is bringing together all of his artists. So I suspect next year we're going to see a lot more artists from Southeast Asia get into the charts and get recognized.
That's
for
cool.
Sure.
That's awesome. And once again, it's for Sid, WeMakeAwesomeShit.it, the website, and then it's...
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't realise I was plugging anything. I was chatting about Music Hack Day. That's nothing to do with me. I'm
okay,
just an
yeah,
attendee.
sure, of course. Cool. Well,
it's all good. We are working on an amazing app at the moment that we're hoping to launch before Christmas.
Ooh,
or
exciting.
Early next year. But it should be a lot of fun if it works. It's with Tiny Temper, and it's the first project that we've done that the artist has actually been massively involved and excited about it as well. which very rarely happens with us anyway. I think it is the first time. So some of the guys were filming with him yesterday.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
That's awesome, and I'm fully expecting a very exciting virtual Christmas card as well. I don't know if you have anything in the works.
Yeah,
the pressure's on now. You've done one.
Well, so this is the thing. We did one last year, right? But we came up with loads of ideas last week, but they all involve slightly longer preparation. But there was discussions about we inadvertently, accidentally managed to get the marketing manager's email for Christmas Island.
Right.
And we were then thinking of, oh, you don't even want to see the conversations we were having. There were some weird and wonderful ideas, and then actually we ended up going, we're not going to do anything this year, are we?
You should have just filmed that and then condensed it into like a 30-second clip and made that as a postcard.
You're right, should have done. Last year we had me and Adam sat in front of a TV where you could text in jokes, and we were dressed as Father Christmas, and we would turn around, laugh at the joke, and then come back. And it was all totally looped, but I had quite a few messages of someone Skyped me and said, and I answered, and he was like, "You're not dressed as Santa. What, you thought that was live?" And it was just all quite entertaining. But
excellent.
Yes, no, we're probably not doing anything this year.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty much it. And again, it's popacademy.de. And for the Music Weekly, it's musicweekly.asia, right? The address for that.
Yes.
So perfect. We plugged everything. And well, thanks so much for listening to the show. And thanks so much for joining me, guys. Digital Music Trends is available on digitalmusictrends.com and on a bunch of different platforms, like I mentioned at the beginning. The handle on Twitter is @DigiMusicTrends. For any feedback, please do email. I do like to receive emails. It's contact@digitalmusictrends.com. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic week. And until next time. And that's all for this week. I really hope you enjoyed the show. Check out digitalmusictrends.com and sign up to the weekly newsletter.